Hello, I am Raj Keshav Malik, PGPM batch of 2027, roll number 2501524, and today I'll be presenting India's EdTech bubble bust. In 2022, Byju's was India's most valuable startup, worth $22 billion. By 2024, it was bankrupt, under investigation, and its founders were facing legal actions across three countries. This is just not a story about one bad company. It's a story about what happens when an entire sector grows too fast with too little accountability and too many people looking the other way. To understand the crash, you have to understand the boom between 2015 and 2020, India's edtech sector was a genuine success story. Then COVID hit, and overnight, 250 million students were locked out of schools. EdTech wasn't just useful anymore. It felt essential. Global investors poured nearly $6 billion into EdTech 2020 and 2022 alone. Over 4,000 startups were operating in this space. Byju's, Unacademy, Vedantu, Eruditus, all raising hundreds of millions, all promising to democratize education. The logic seemed sound. India had 600 million people under 25. The public school system is underfunded. A tech cloud bridged the gap. The story was compelling and it was not entirely wrong. It was just widely overfunded. The unraveling began in 2022 when global interest rate rose and the VC funding winter set in. Suddenly, growth at any cost was no longer fundable. The cracks showed fast. Byju's missed audit deadlines, not by weeks, but by years. In 2023, it defaulted on a $1.2 billion loan and lenders took them to court in the United States. Tens of thousands of jobs were cut at Byju's, Unacademy, Vedantu, Eruditus. By 2024, Byju's was declared insolvent. The Enforcement Directorate, the ED, conducted raids. STEMA violations were flagged. Founders were investigated. Over 1,000 edtech startups shut down. VC funding in the sector fell by roughly 8% from its peak. 50,000 jobs gone. This was not a minor correction. It was a sector-wide collapse. So what went wrong? What actually went wrong? Four things, and they compounded each other. First, growth was prioritized over learning. Companies were spending 5 to 8 rupees to earn 1 rupee of revenue. Sales agents enrolled students in courses they didn't need, using high pressure tactics and EMI schemes. Pedagogy was irrelevant. Customer acquisition cost was everything. Second, governance was absent. Byju's didn't file audited accounts for years. No single regulators owned EdTech. MOE, SEBI, RBI, MCA all had partial oversight. None had full accountability. Third, the unit economics never worked. Pandemic era engagement didn't survive school reopening. Companies had built 5-year revenue models on one off behavioral shift. Fourth, capital was misallocated at scale. Billions went into acquiring companies globally. Epic, Akash, Topper, before the core India business was profitable, and debt raised in dollars. With revenue in rupees, became a fatal mismatch when the currency moved. Now, here's why this matters as an economic problem, not just a business story. Millions of students, many from middle and lower middle class families, took out loans to buy courses. When platforms shut, they got no refunds and no recourse. India's human capital formation was directly harmed. Over 60,000 crore rupees were invested in edtech over a decade. A significant portion of what went into marketing was not content, not research, not teacher quality. That capital could have funded manufacturing, infrastructure, or public digital platforms. And EdTech promised to substitute for poor public schooling. It actually didn't. It served the already advantaged. The students who needed it the most in rural areas, in government schools, gained the least from it. The digital divide wasn't bridged, it was widened. Why haven't we actually fixed it? Three real barriers exist. One, jurisdictional confusion. No single ministry or regulators own EdTech in India. A bill has been drafted, it has not been passed yet. Two, industry resistance. The startup lobby argues. that the regulation kills innovation, and there's a genuine definitional challenge. Where does edtech end and YouTube begin? Three, political economy. EdTech unicorns were national pride. Governments were slow to regulate what they had publicly celebrated. Globally, countries have acted. China banned for profit school tutoring entirely. The US FTC actively prosecutes deceptive EdTech marketing. The UK requires quality standards before any platform can use the word certifications. India is still at draft guideline stage. So, what is the path forward? The path forward requires action across three timeframes. In the next 6 months, pass the consumer protection and tech guidelines, mandatory refunds, quality disclosures, and a dedicated grievance portal. This requires no new law, only political will. Over the next 18 months, establish a regulatory sandbox under the Ministry of Education and clear a joint SEBI RBI framework for tech fundraising disclosures. So we never again have a situation where billions are raised with no audit trail. Over 3 years, pass a dedicated EdTech Act, integrate complaint platforms with government programs like Diksha and PM eVidya. Shift incentives from aggressive D2C models to school participant B2B subscriptions. India's EdTech story is not just a corporate failure. It's a regulatory failure, a capital allocation failure, and ultimately a failure to protect students. The lesson is simple: regulate proactively, not reactively. Measure outcomes, not vanity metrics. And treat EdTech as a complement to public education, not a replacement for it. Thank you so much.